Tomorrow night, we're going to see a national spectacle. Public hearings on TV at night, including right here on KGW, that delve into the January 6th attempted takeover of the U.S. Capitol. We're not going to have a show, which is fine. You should be watching the hearing instead. And when you do, know that there's a direct tie to our area through people and violent rallies that were held right here. Our first two stories will delve into these connections, and here's the first one of those. Hundreds of people were arrested after storming the Capitol building. The incident left 5 people dead and lawmakers running for safety. 8 people from Oregon and Southwest Washington were eventually charged as part of the investigation that followed. And as investigative reporter Kyle Aboshi found, some of those criminal cases are now quietly being resolved.
A father-son duo from Battleground, Washington are both set to accept plea deals with federal prosecutors for their role in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Jeff and Jeremy Grace were seen in videos and photos posing together inside the Capitol building during the insurrection. In March 2021, we interviewed the father, Jeff Grace. Why did you enter the Capitol building?
You know, I really don't know. To be honest, I don't know. I had no intention of it. And I don't want to say swept up by the crowd or swept up by my heart or swept up by this. I don't really have an answer for that.
Court records indicate the son, Jeremy Grace, pleaded guilty in April to a single count of entering and remaining in a restricted building. As part of the plea deal, federal prosecutors suggest Jeremy Grace will likely receive a sentence ranging from 0 to 6 months in prison, along with a fine from $500 to $9,500. A judge will have final say during formal sentencing in July. Court records show Jeremy Grace will also provide cooperation with additional investigation, including allowing agents to review any social media accounts in and around January 6, 2021, the day of the insurrection. His father, Jeff Grace, is scheduled for a plea hearing on June 17th. During his previous interview with KGW, Jeff Grace lied, claiming his son didn't enter the Capitol building.
He didn't go in the Capitol.
And Jeff Grace said he didn't take any photos or video. But court records prove otherwise. Images show the father and son posing together. Federal agents claim both Jeff and Jeremy Grace tried to delete the selfie-style videos shot during the insurrection. 5 people died, including a Capitol police officer in this.
Yes, sir.
How does that sit with you?
It's sad. It's tragic. There's no justification of it. And I would pray that if any of my actions caused any of that I would pray for forgiveness from their family, I guess. I don't know.
In August 2021, a federal judge ordered Jeff Grace surrender any guns and weapons while awaiting trial after he showed up armed during what prosecutors described as pre-planned confrontations in Portland and El Paso. In all, 8 people from Oregon and Southwest Washington are facing charges in relation to the Capitol riot. They include 2 brothers, Matthew and Jonathan Peter Klein. Photos provided by the Department of Justice show the Kleins inside the Capitol building on January 6th. According to court papers, Jonathan Peter Klein is a self-identified member of the far-right Proud Boys. The Klein brothers have pleaded not guilty. Federal prosecutors also relied on images taken from videos and social media to help build a case against Richard Harris. He is living at his father's house in Happy Valley while awaiting trial, scheduled for September. The FBI used surveillance and body-worn camera footage to help identify a 63-year-old Hillsborough man. Reed Christensen is awaiting trial on multiple charges in connection with the takeover of the Capitol after allegedly striking and pushing officers. Jeffrey Hubbard of Lincoln City was also charged. Federal prosecutors say he was spotted on surveillance video storming the Capitol on January 6th. Tipsters alerted the FBI about Mark Brew of Vancouver. He's accused of breaching the U.S. Capitol and is due in court next month for a status conference. In all, the U.S. Justice Department has charged more than 800 people with crimes related to the deadly assault on January 6, 2021.
It's interesting stuff, Kyle. Have you talked to Jeff Grace since that original interview?
Not directly. I did reach out to him today to see if he wanted to comment on the plea deal. He didn't reply. You know, Grace, he had been very active on social media, posting videos, speaking out against the government. But really, that's kind of stopped in the last few months. He's been pretty quiet.
How will these other cases play out? Are they going to be plea deals?
Tough to say. Most have status hearings next month. That's where they all come in and kind of check on where things stand. That should give us a little bit better read on if we'll see more plea deals for the local defendants or if they're actually going to head to trial.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kyle, for the update. Appreciate it. Federal prosecutors have also charged the former president of a group called the Proud Boys and 4 other members with seditious conspiracy for their actions in the Capitol and the attack on the Capitol building. The group might sound familiar. Long before they were in Washington, D.C., the group led several brawls right here in Portland. And a senior researcher for the Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks and legally battles hate groups, says it was no accident that the group targeted Portland, Oregon.
It's a group that was formed in 2016, and really since the beginning of their existence, they have focused on holding rallies around the country that are aimed at creating violent confrontations with people that they consider their political enemies. And the epicenter of that activity has always been Portland. And they have chosen Portland for a few reasons. One is that Portland has a long history of militant anti-fascism. It's a state that, or it's a city that had a very strong racist skinhead scene, particularly in the 1980s. And in response to that, we saw a anti-fascist movement develop to oppose it. And the Proud Boys' really main objective is to confront anti-fascists. For them, that acts as a form of propaganda. If they can get people to engage in violent confrontations with them and film it, they can put it on their social media, and that often ramps up support from members of the group and other like-minded people, and it can actually increase recruitment.
And it's interesting because I've covered several of those rallies or gatherings or whatever they are, and it does seem like there's quite a bit of taunting that goes back and forth between the two sides, and then inevitably the police come in to try and keep the two sides apart. And from at least the ones that I've been at, the Proud Boys sort of melt away, and then it's the police against Antifa, and the Proud Boys say, "See, there you go. That's what we're talking about."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Proud Boys are really trying to set up that kind of confrontation. They are going into these cities to create these combustible situations. These sort of situations wouldn't exist if they hadn't set them up in the first place. In the run-up to every rally, we'd see pretty much the same thing. They would spend months or weeks online planning to engage in violence, talking about what kinds of weapons they would bring to rallies, what kind of protective gear they would wear, and they would go that day ready to engage in violence using a lot of bombastic, aggressive language.
That's Cassie Miller there. She's tracked the Proud Boys through video feeds and over social media for the last 5 years. She's convinced that a lack of serious legal trouble for the Proud Boys after Portland rallies made them more bold. She also thinks the work to organize members for the Portland rallies and then publicize those events, that also helped the Proud Boys gain momentum and expertise when they eventually used in Washington, D.C.
So they have come back to Portland repeatedly because they really don't fear legal repercussions. They faced very few consequences for the rallies they repeatedly held in the city.
And do you think did that play any sort of role in the national pot boiling towards January 6th?
Mm-hmm. I think that the Proud Boys repeatedly coming to Portland did play a role in them eventually ending up at the Capitol on January 6th. Those years running up to early 2021, they were able to develop these robust nationwide networks. And a lot of that was happening at rallies in Portland. So there were a lot of local activists who were coming to those rallies, but a lot of people from other parts of the country as well. So someone like Joe Biggs, who is facing sedition charges, is not from Portland. He's not from the region, but he would repeatedly come there to engage in these rallies. And that's where the sort of nationwide network of Proud Boys really congealed.
So there's some context on the hearings that you'll see tomorrow night. Now I want your input. What do you think? Are you surprised to learn the Portland rallies helped the Proud Boys as they focused eventually on the nation's capital? Or are you skeptical about that? Do you think maybe there was no connection? Were you at any of the rallies? What was it like for you? Shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Our address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090.